Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Now we come to the commentary and summary of the whole 20 symposiums. Undoubtedly, the construction of a constitution for any country or state is a decisive question for a decisive question. But how such a thing may be? Here is the answer. The former decisive question is the cause, but the latter one is the effect of the cause. But how? The decisive cause is to have a certain country or state in existence after being not, and in a certain formation and position, whereas the decisive effect is to get a new country or state, a new formation and position after being not in existence. And they are hoped and wanted to be. But what does this matter mean in regard of the viewpoint about life and the whole existence, and in regard of our subject, which we are now commenting about and summarizing, and which includes this 19 symposium, and which includes these 20 symposium talking about? It is the draft application or the draft constitution prepared to be after revision and discussion in view of the new enlightening information, thoughts and facts. The application which will be applied by the hopeful Islamic State, the Caliphate State, with God's help and victory. What does it mean in view of all these matters? It is certainly when God fulfills victory in one country or more of the Islamic world, and the Caliphate State is re-established, the existence of the new country or the new Islamic Dar is realized, and the new Islamic formation together with the new international position have to be in existence after being not. When establishing the Caliphate State in one or more countries, this new country in a new formation and position comes to be in existence. And when applying the Islamic Sharia in this state, the new formation and position come to be in existence too. Merely when God's victory is actually in life, when God's victory is actual in life, Ummah gets rid of the puppet rulers. Though gradually all over the Islamic world, by tearing out their stubborn connection with the foreign enemy states, who are used to fabricate such rulers and protect them as if they are the everlasting destiny of peoples. Merely when Ummah gets rid of them and grasps the ruling reins by its firm and honest hands of the new Islamic statesmen, the new country with the new formation is in existence, and also the new position in a new internal and external questions and problems is in existence. This is the decisive cause. But where is its decisive effect? It is when the new formation and position enforce on the country. The new rulers have to manage its protection, firmness and safety against all inside and outside conspiracies, and to give it the new position in establishing the new Islamic State over its territories, applying Islam legislation inside, and preparing itself to action for delivering its message outside. Merely by realizing these two new formation and position, the new effect of that new cause is in existence. But applying Islam as a decisive effect is not realized but with these three matters. One, having an Islamic draft constitution ready for being discussed and implemented directly after establishing the Caliphate state. Even it is in one country of the Islamic world, no delay would occur, else the new begotten state should be exposed to two fatal dangers. One, implementing non-Islam, even for one day, exposes the state to be non-caliphate one. Two, becoming much busy in searching for a constitution. The statesmen neglect drawing plans necessary for determining and protecting the new state against inside riots and outside intrigues, a case which exposes it to quick collapse. This is the first matter. The second matter, having new statesmen of upper awareness. Having new statesmen of super awareness about the new facts and about the riots and conspiracies against and about the Islamic legislation wanted to be applied directly through transmission of the draft constitution to final constitution suitable for the practical life at once. The third matter, having enough material capacity and actual powerful ability in hands of the new ruler so as to fulfill complete implementation of Islam together with determination and protection. As for the capacity, it comes out from having enough number of statesmen, assistants and supporters, all of high quality. But as for the ability, it comes out from both preparation of Ummah and army to defend the new formation and position, and to afford all needed sacrifice under the leadership of the new statesmen, who aim to accomplish applying, determining, and protecting both of the new formation and position. The most decisive matter of these three is the first one, regardless all legal ways and means used in carrying out this draft constitution as the final constitution of the state, which is ready to be defended by at least the majority of the subjects. Any flaw in this draft would expose it to one or both of those aforementioned fatal dangers. The situation assures that the draft must be comprehensive and subtle at the same time. As comprehensiveness, the draft has to involve all aspects of life, not in reformulating the past life in the new resumed Islamic life only, but also without defect in any aspect of life. It has to involve all aspects of life and so much enough headlines that all necessary constitutional articles are included. As for subtlety, the articles of this draft have not dealt ordinarily with any aspect of life. They do not adopt something from this scholar of jurisprudence and another something from another one, and so on. But they set down all the running cases wanted to be lived in the Islamic life and in the Islamic society. They study them deeply to summarize each aspect's headline in certain generalities, such as the economic one, for example, and they go back to Islamic legislation or fiqh and its main two sources, the book and Sunnah, and its four detailed considerable evidences, which are Sahaba's unanimity, legal analogy besides the book and Sunnah. The draft in this way becomes keenly aware of the realities and what is suitable from Sharia generalities for tackling them well. It is guided in this process by usul fiqh rules, which direct the treatments to be in forms of constitutional article and in a certain shape of a certain color. It is the distinguished Islamic color which does not flatter any ideology of the world because of being enough powerful by itself and not by reconciliation with others, the matter which happened with the previous socialistic world. And it is happening with the present capitalistic one. It does not flatter social ideology, which was prior to live on in the world of fighting objective ideologies, if its believers had developed it and protected against capitalism or imperialism instead of selling it cheaply for the American wheat and Dutch butter. It doesn't flatter also capitalism, neither for its open markets or free trade, which is ready to swallow the weak, to defend the wealthy monopoly and the greedy powerful people, nor for its democracy, which alleges regarding peoples and nations who live on it, when it affords them parliamentary elections, which are not considered in their best cases more than a play of the powerful and wealthy persons with their nations and states, till the capitalist cartels and trusts have become the fabricator of their presidents or kings, and ready to replace them with others whenever they want. In a word, usul fiqh rules give the articles of the draft the distinctive Islamic color. Also, those usul rules give the articles another color of different quality. It is the color controlled by certain measures. It is ruled by the evidence strongly conducted by their usul and by the subtlety of applying in life. In this way, the articles are far from playful fancy, one running after the so-called easier judgment, even when adopted from any mazhab and taking no care for their usul. By such a subtlety and comprehensiveness, the draft should be able to satisfy arranging all demands of all different aspects of life. The way of treating every demand is deep and proper when looking into each one of them. In this way, the draft is safe from being exposed to any of the two fatal dangers. Its comprehensiveness can afford treatments for every sphere of life. The new rulers have no need to think if there is such an assumption in systems or legislation other than Islam. Its subtlety admits not the ruler to be busy away from the dangerous cases which the state is exposed to, but vice versa. It would make rulers and subjects together feel safe. It would enable the rulers to invent plans and ways to determine the state and system and to protect them by God's help against any apostate or hypocrite or malicious or intriguer. It would enable the subjects also through piety and aiming God satisfactions to live on these constitutional articles and to be ready for sacrificing all expensive and precious things for the sake of protecting this constitution and its men against all inside discourse or riots and outside intrigues or conspiracies. A quick glance into this draft will show that it is in fact involving the two necessary elements, comprehensiveness and subtlety. It starts with the introduction covering general rules in 14 articles and 2 complete symposiums. It remarkably shows the general Islamic viewpoint which controls all the articles of the draft. It talks about the Islamic belief as the basis of the state and its system, about the adoption of decrees by the Caliph so as to be the constitution and the laws, about the individuals of subjects enjoying the legal rights and duties without any differentiation between them before governing and judging. These are the contents of the first symposium. But the second one talks about the Arabic language as the single language of Islam, about ijtihad as an individual obligation, about the responsibility of all Muslims for Islam without having religion men distinguished from others, about the regional task of the state, which is the Islamic call delivery to other peoples and nations, about the considerable Sharia detailed evidences upon which all the articles of this draft are built, about Sharia view in regard of man and being originally innocent, hence no punishment, but after a court sentence, about defining the legal view for actions and things in origin, about the time when the means for doing haram is forbidden. By this item or article, the second symposium comes to an end, and all the generalities come to an end too. We see that the first symposium has discussed the limitations of the state's legislation and of the subject's duties and rights, whereas the second symposium has limited the Sharia decrees in respect of deducing them out from sources and their view to man and his deeds. They are really manifesting in best way the general rules about all life spheres. They pave the way well to move on to the next specialized symposium in proper and subtle way. The third symposium talks about the most important and serious aspect of life. It is the ruling system by which life is controlled and according which it lives. But can one symposium cover this subject? Of course no. We see that the following 9 symposiums undertake this task well. The third symposium, after referring to the general foundation, it is centralized in ruling and decentralized in administration. And those performing any act of ruling should be distinctively qualified from others. And the Ruler's Act should be always reconsidered seriously by Ummah's individuals and parties. The last 2 articles of the symposium talk about the most important part of the system. That is to say, the basis upon which the system is built and the corners from which the system is formed. Then the rest 8 symposiums move on with these 8 corners, one after the other, showing all general rules related with them in a special article for each. The headship of the state covers the next 2 symposiums, numbers 4 and 5, Number 4 includes 11 articles talking about the task of the caliph and the fact that the caliphate is a contract of co-satisfaction and election and not of heritage or compulsion, and about the qualifications of those who elect and pledge the caliph allegiance to be caliph, and about the two sources of bay'ah, about the sense of the auto sultan of any country pledging the caliph allegiance, about the conditions of contracting and those of priority for the caliph, about the obligation of electing a new caliph if the position is empty within the next 3 days, about the way of electing the caliph, and at last about the authoritative power of electing the caliph, which is Ummah as a whole. As for symposium number 5, it goes on discussing other aspects of the ruling system. It refers to the authorities of the caliph and how he is restricted to the considerable legal detailed evidences in deducting decrees and in regarding the affairs throughout the Sharia rule and not benefit or interest. Then it refers to the period of headship and that it is not limited in number of years but in performing well all obligations. Then it ends with talking about the circumstances in which the conditions of the caliph are changed to dismiss him out of headship, and that the Court of Injustice Acts only has the authority to decide that case. As for symposium number 6, it talks about the next two corners of the ruling system, about the caliph's assistant of delegation, who partake him in undertaking the ruling responsibility, and his assistant of execution, who have no connection with ruling as ruling, but as executing or carrying out the rules. That is to say, the administrative aspect, although they are considered some of the caliph intimacy. The 7th symposium discusses the four corners, the valleys, and how the state territories are divided into vilayats. Each one of them is headed by a valley, appointed by the caliph, so as to rule as his deputy and to supervise the executive measures backed by the vilayat's elected council, on condition not prolonging the period of vilayat, so as to avoid concentration and separation, and on condition of hard supervising of the valley's performances by the caliph, so as to assure justice and security together with safety as a result. The 4th symposium stands by the 5th corner, the judges, in respect of definition of their words, their appointing, their source, and the condition ought to be available in each source. Then it refers to the formation of cause and settlement of problem, and it ends with referring to the cause, degrees, and numeration regard of a problem's kind, and not of reviewing the one problem. The 9th symposium talks about the judge of Hisbah, Muhtasib, and his authority, and about the judge of Injustice Acts and his seriousness, since the Court of Injustice Act alone has the right of disregarding any ruler or employee of the state and the caliph himself, and about the other authorities of the Court of Injustice Act, and at last it talks about the subject of agency in private and public acts. The 10th symposium talks about the Amir of Jihad, that is to say the Amir Prince and the army of the state, its mission and its two parts, the permanent and reserve, then the policemen and their tasks. Then it refers to the flags and banners of the army, and that the caliph is the leader of the army in fact, and not in nominations such as nowadays state. Then about distributing the army in camps about securing high military education side by side with Islamic culture so as to perform its mission well, and about securing the necessary weapons and equipment together with the high competent officers. Then it discusses the seventh corner of the ruling system, which comes in symposium number 11 and talks about the administration system. It is the managers or directors of the state's departments and administration. It refers to their responsibilities and their general boss, the assistant of execution, who appoints them for the different ones, which should be restricted to a certain policy in performing their duties. That is to say, the simplicity of order, quickness of accomplishing, and adequacy of men. At last, it talks about the qualities of each manager and director. As for symposium number 12, it is the last one which talks about the ruling system. It refers to Ummah's council in its formation out from Ummah's representatives and throughout direct election performed by the whole subjects. Then it discusses a sensitive subject to talk about is confused by so many Muslim writers. That is to say, the matter of consultation and distinguishing it from counsel. The right of whom is it? And the rule of non-Muslim in it. At last it stops by the four authorities of Ummah's council. Now all the 9 symposiums talking about the ruling system are over after discussing all its aspects subtly and completely until it appears in such a distinctive completion and complete distinction. The symposiums move on to another aspect of life. It is the social system, the system confined to the relationship between men and women as to coordinating members in family and society. This symposium number 13 talks about the subject in 18 articles. They refer to the original case of woman as a mother and housewoman, then to what Sharia admits and unadmits in meeting of men and women. Then they talk about the rights and the duties of women, which are equal to those private and public acts of men, except in some of them, such as to be a judge of injustice acts and a ruler. Then they stand deeply by a serious point so long confused. That is to say, it is the conception of the private and public life of women and their limits and what is permitted and impermitted in both of them after the reference for forbidding privacy of men and women. That is to say, which is meeting together alone and utilizing womanliness and man attractive, handsome gaze. The symposium moves on to talk about the conception of marriage life and the meaning of responsibility and of cooperation between the couple. Then it ends with talking about sponsorship for the young children all through this life. The draft then moves on to another aspect of life, giving it more concentration and more detail due to its breadth and numerous branches. It is the aspect of economy. The following 4 symposiums discuss all spheres of it comprehensively and deeply. The first one, which is number 14 on the draft, covers 9 articles talking about these matters successively. The policy of economy, the economic problem and what is it distributing wealth and benefits and not developing them, as the economists are used to say. The obligation of satisfying the basic needs of subjects completely and the luxury ones as much as probable. The requisite of the conception about wealth, that it is God's and people are only heirs. The three sources of property, individual, common, and state one. The conception of the individual property, then of the common one, then of the state one, and at last the 5 legal causes of ownership. As for symposium number 15 and the second one about the economic sphere of life, it covers 14 articles talking about dispossession of property, the consumption of decimal land and uncultivated one, about forbidding renting land for farming and regaining it from the man who neglects it for 3 successive years, and about defining the cases when common property is available in things, about the factory and where it stands among properties, about the individual property and forbidding changing it into collective or common one, about Ummah's partaking in utilizing the collective party, and about what is admitted to be protected of lands by the state, and about forbidding the burial of wealth, though their zakat is paid, about the wealth of zakat and of jizya, and at last of garage and the kharaj land. As for symposium number 16 and the third one of the economic sphere, it covers 12 articles talking about the tax collected only from Muslims, about the budget of the state and its bars and chapters, then about the 5 permanent resources of the House of Finance, and collecting taxes from Muslims if those resources are not enough, then about customs and other considerable resources of the House of Finance, and about the way of dividing these resources among 6 ones. Then it moves on to talk about the state and its duty of assuring works for all subjects, then about the employees of the public and private sector, then about the basis upon which the wages are built, then about the state and its duty of enduring the expenses of the poor, then about the state duty in circulating wealth among the citizens and enabling everybody to satisfy his luxurious needs and effecting equilibrium in society. Then symposium is over after discussing this wide scope of economic questions and problems. Now the last symposium which discusses this sphere of life is number 17 of this draft. It ends this discussion in 11 articles. They talk about the state supervision, about agricultural, industrial and commercial affairs, especially those of the foreign trade. Then they move on to establishing laboratories by the subjects and state. They talk then about the state sponsorship for the free health services. Then they refer to a very sensitive subject in the field of economy. It is the matter of foreign loans and investment. They decide that they are absolutely forbidden. At last, the symposium talks about the subject of currency and that it is gold and silver and what they fully cover, together with issuing special full covered currency and forbidding the opening of other banks more than the state one, in which exchanging money between the state ones and the foreign ones is run. Herewith the discussion of the economic sphere is over. Then the draft moves to another field of life, not of less seriousness and importance than other spheres, if not more than them all. It is the sphere of education and culture. The draft mentions this matter under the title of Education Policy in Symposium number 18. It discusses them in 17 articles, in which talks about the foundation of education curriculum, about the reality of educational policy, about the purpose of education, and about the necessity of distinguishing between experimental sciences and cultural knowledge, about determination of teaching the Islamic culture throughout the education stages, and about how arts and industries are attached sometimes with sciences and other times with culture. Then it talks about the unity of state's educational program and about the assurance of having the free necessary education all along the first basic stage, and about giving full chance for the free high education also, and about the necessity of having libraries and laboratories and the like outside schools and universities, and about preventing utilizing authorship of books in education, and about giving permission to issue any paper or magazine or book which does not offend the basis upon which the state is built. And at last it ends with the reference to struggle to eradicate illiteracy, both alphabetic and cultural, all over the state's territories. Herewith the discussion of the sphere of the draft is over, and there is nothing more to discuss of life aspects but one, which is the foreign policy. The last two symposiums of this series will discuss this aspect. They are the 19th and the 20th ones. As for the 19th symposium, it covers 8 articles talking about the sense of policy and the prevention of holding relationships between the subjects and the foreign state, about controlling policy in a certain way, which is not contradicted with its mean and ways, since object does not justify the mean, about necessity of using politics maneuver as an essential part of the foreign policy, about the most important political ways in foreign policy, and the great political methods, and the political cause of honor, and the axis around which the foreign policy revolves. This symposium comes to an end. As for symposium number 20, the last one in this discussion of this draft, it covers 5 articles only. The first article talks about the 4 considerable matters upon which the relationships are built between the Islamic State and other states. The first matter is whether they are the Islamic world or those we have treaties with them, or those virtually fighting against us, or those actually fighting against us. The second one talks about the prevention of holding military and political treaties with the foreign states. The third one talks about admission for opening embassies by the states, non-actual fighting, and imperializing and opening embassies for certain missions in their capitals. The fourth one talks about admission of opening embassies in the non-actual if fighting states. The fourth article talks about prevention of the state partaking in assemblies built upon non-Islamic or applying non-Islam. Herein the discussion of this aspect is over, and of all aspects of life is over too. The draft, as we see, is complete and integral, and no aspect of life is missed or weakly discovered. Such a draft is really in need of study and discussion, not out of scientific view only, so as to get acquainted with, or of educational view only, and for merely studying and knowing, but out of implementing view, so as to shift it from ink and paper attitude to actual and executive one. Any discussion moves in this way would be really serious, because if it doesn't find what it looks for out it, that is to say the proper constitution for real applying law, it would undoubtedly find in it the draft constitution, which deserves to go back to whenever applying of any other constitution is taking place in the life of the Islamic Ummah. So, if such a draft is impossible to be the output of an individual effort, it is well known that any intellectual act whatever in need of a collective discussion, its source and origin should remain the output of an individual mental effort. And if there is any other more word to add after all this show of the draft article and their explanations and discussion, it is to add after all, it is to call all Ummah as individuals and groups as confidence and adequate abilities to wake up and conceive that there is no way but to go back to the Islamic legislation, not merely for understanding and learning and teaching, but to aware it, to comprehend it, generally and in details, to look forward seriously to live upon it, and according to its decrees in life. Such an applicable awareness should find out in this draft an important support, if, let us dare say, not a single support, to move on from seeing a mere awareness for application to application itself. God Almighty, the All-Praised, I ask heartedly to fulfill this purpose today and not tomorrow, and to make out of this effort an advantageous one in this life and a highly rewarded one in the next one. He is the all-nearer, the all-hearer, the all-cherisher, the all-accomplisher. Our Master Muhammad, peace be upon him and the relative, be praised together with his friends and all who follow well up till doomsday. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise and thanks to our Lord, the Creator of all creatures.